Now we'll take a look at some legal, political matters. We're joined now by Mr. Norrison, Quakers, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure.
It's actually about this Adamawa matter. We do know that, yes, ever since the governor and his deputy were impeached, that controversy as to the deputy governor's resignation, should he have sent a letter to the governor or the House, and all of that argument went on. Then eventually they notified INEC. INEC has fixed the dates actually for that by-election. But then the deputy governor is trying to go to court to seek the court to declare him as the acting governor, because some argue that his resignation was not properly done. In fact, I see some comments, if I could just trace it and read some article. I think Festus Kayama also spoke about this. It says, let me quote that text which he circulated. It says, consequently, by the provisions of sections 306, sub 1, 2, and 5, the purported resignation of the deputy governor never took place, or at worst, never took effect. It can only take effect upon receipt of it by the governor.
Let me start by saying that the Constitution as it is, even though it's not a perfect document, has provision for situations like we are experiencing currently in Adamawa State. Section 191, 1, 2, and I think 1 and 2 is very clear on that. In the event that there's some vacancy in the office of the deputy governor, ordinarily the deputy governor steps in the absence of the governor to act as governor until confirmed by the House of Assembly of the state or until he's sworn in. But where the office of the deputy governor is vacant, and the provisions of sub 2 now explains what the vacancy is. Now, the Constitution envisages vacancy in different forms. Vacancy by impeachment, vacancy by resignation, vacancy by death, vacancy by medical challenge. Now, in all of this, now, the aspect of resignation is personal to the occupant or occupier of that office. Now, transmitting the letter, who do you transmit the letter to when you have resigned? Resignation can come in two forms. Resignation can come from the unwillingness of the occupant of that office from going back to the office. He is no longer interested. Now, in the Adamawa case, what the deputy governor, and mind you, a lot of papers carried that period after the governor was impeached. A lot of us expected the deputy governor to be sworn in, only for us to be informed that the deputy governor actually resigned. Now, how come he's suddenly turning around now to say, oh, he never actually resigned? He never actually transmitted his letter of resignation. I mean, we should be honorable in this country. Did he leave the office? The answer is yes. If he left the office, but in what circumstances did he leave the office? Did he transmit the letter or not? The aspect of not transmitting the letter is you could say, perhaps, okay, it's inquiry, but did he do a letter?
What if you said they forced him to do that letter?
Well, the evidence is not available to any. Did he cry out when the governor was impeached that he's also being forced to resign? I mean, we should be honorable in this country.
But initially, sorry, Mark, initially there was that the impeachment process was supposed to involve both he and the governor.
Yes.
So he decided, is it not right for him to decide what he wanted to do with it?
That's exactly what we're saying. That he probably decided that rather than go through the route of being subjected to an impeachment proceedings, I'd rather resign. Now, a man who resigns can no longer be impeached because what's the effect or the essence of impeachment? The essence of impeachment is to remove the person from office. And if he decided on his own that I don't want to subject myself to the rigors of the impeachment process, look at what is happening in, I think it was in Enugu State, where the deputy governor, in the process of giving evidence at the panel, collapsed. So he probably also decided, look, I don't want to go through any sort of form of stress. Governance is not by compulsion. I came in willingly, I want to leave willingly. The fact is, did he do a letter?
So it doesn't matter who he gave the letter to?
It doesn't matter who he gave the letter. The fact is, he has resigned. If, for instance, I work with the deputy governor, and he does a letter to say, look, I'm no longer interested, I want to leave, and I take that letter that he's given to me, I can transmit it on his behalf. The fact is there a letter of resignation? If there is indeed a letter of resignation, all those who and cry will not even arise. The fact is, did he do a letter? If the answer is yes, it's as good as gone. And then more so, why did it take him over how many months to suddenly wake up to the realization that indeed there's a vacancy. If you look at the constitutional provision, where the governor is impeached, the deputy governor steps in. Now the constitution now provides for another situation that where the office of the deputy governor is vacant. And that's why I say if you look at 191, 1 and 2, is also very clear on that. Where the office of the deputy governor is also vacant as a result of either impeachment, death, resignation, and medical challenge where he has health issues, he can also leave.
Okay, let's just go backtrack a little bit here. The letter that was written by the deputy governor, supposedly written by the deputy governor, the House of Assembly said it was addressed to the governor in their letter to INEC, and the governor received it. But going down, I also say that Nyako had rejected the letter of his deputy, the resignation letter, on the grounds that it was illegal, null, and void, since the letter was not addressed to him as stipulated in Section 306, subsection 1, 2, and 5 of the 1999 Constitution. He was forced to write the letter to the Speaker of the House of Assembly, but was given to the governor then, and he rejected it. So does that letter still stand? Bro?
Yes. You see, look, let's look at it this way. The essence of all we're looking at is whether the deputy governor resigned. I mean, it's a voluntary thing. If the letter has been done, let's take it that, okay, it was addressed to the wrong person. The fact is, did he resign from his office? If the answer is yes, it's as good as done.
But it was, at that time, the former governor was still there.
Yes.
And the letter was addressed to the Speaker.
Yes.
Not to the governor.
Yes.
Who is supposed to collect the letter.
Yes.
So how would that letter still hold ground, seeing that it was addressed to the wrong person at that time?
Look at it this way. Did he resign? The fact of resignation is key. It is not the recipient of the letter of resignation. The fact of resignation, if, for instance, in an organization such as you have, someone decides to resign and the letter ought to have been done to, say, the personnel manager, and it was done to the MD. The fact is, the staff is no longer interested in the work.
Even if it was rejected?
The question is, what is the effect of the rejection? If a letter is not addressed, if a letter is not addressed to me and is addressed to someone else and perchance given to me, let's say a letter is addressed to the MD, I am the deputy MD. The MD is still in office. But being the deputy MD, can I act on that letter? The answer is no. But the fact is, the person who has brought the letter to me, I can do one or two things. Transmit the letter to the appropriate authority, or say to the person, please go and give your letter to the person, or address it to the person that you ought to address it to. But all this while, the deputy governor never said anything about it. Why the sudden awakening, so to speak? Why the sudden consciousness? Why are you now interested? Is it because the Speaker has now been sworn? Because the Constitution actually provides that where there is a vacancy, where a vacancy occurs. Now, the vacancy that the Section 191 is referring to contemplates a situation where the office of the deputy governor is vacant by virtue of resignation. And did he say anything about following the protocol? All it just says is resignation. So once you have resigned, and the fact of resignation is on the front burner, you can't go back to say, oh no, I never resigned.
Let me bring this in before I come back to this section 306. On the part of INEC, can they say that, okay, well, if all of this is going on and the Adamawa State doesn't notify INEC, can INEC say, well, we won't conduct elections?
No, certainly not. I read an article by Tayo Itibo, SAN, in respect of this, and I actually commend him, and I would also advise that a lot of people should take that article to read, where he said that the timetable has been set by INEC. The election must hold, because that's what the Electoral Act says. You can't leapfrog. You can't change what is on ground. The fact is, a deputy governor envisaged, well, I'm not him, I'm not in his mind, but from the way one can read from the facts, that he probably thought that, look, my governor is going, I am no longer. More so, he resigned while the governor who was impeached was still in office. Now, the governor was eventually impeached. At the time when the governor was being impeached and the governor was going through the impeachment proceedings, where was he all this while? Was he still in office as deputy governor? Or had he left? Mind you, at the time the governor was eventually impeached, he was no longer there as the occupant of that office. So there was a vacancy. And it was a result of that, the Speaker was now sworn in.